Hello, my name is Scott. I'm going to be your YouTube companion here for the next maybe hour or so. What I'm going to be doing on this channel is delving into metal albums. I'm going to be reacting to metal albums. They're going to be long videos. What I'm going to do to try to help you guys out with that is I'm going to put timestamps to my favorite songs in the description and in the comments, so that you guys, if you want to, you can fast forward to some of the songs that I really enjoyed, and probably some of the bigger songs, more well-known songs as well on the albums. But my aim here is to do reactions to albums from metal bands that are not necessarily the most popular bands. I want to hit up a lot of obscure, mid-level, and lesser known artists and give them some promotion and some shine on this channel. So I have to say that I don't make any money off this channel. These videos are heavily edited so as to avoid copyright issues, and I do give my commentary throughout the album reactions. So there's going to be some stopping and starting and some pausing, and I want to apologize for that up front. If you want to listen to the album in its entirety without me giving my feedback or my commentary, the original link to the album in its entirety is going to be in the description. So just go ahead and click that link, and you'll be able to enjoy it without me talking over it. So thank you for stopping by. If you have any suggestions for future album reactions, please put them in the comment section. Please keep the comment section civil, okay? I don't want any personal attacks, no trolling, no shit posting, and just no irrelevant or trivial information, please. Put what you want to hear me do in the comment section, and I'll see what I can do. These take a long time to do, so yeah, I don't know how many I'm going to be able to get up a week, but, you know, I'm trying this out, and I'm going to see what I can do, what I have time for, and see what sticks. So if you enjoy this video, again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and that's it for the introduction. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hello out there. This is going to be album reaction number 6. This is going to be pretty cool. This is a band that I grew up listening to a little bit, and I don't think they get too much recognition, too much shine. This is an album by them that I haven't heard yet, but that I know was their most popular album. So it is a popular album for this band, but this is definitely not a band that people are constantly talking about as one of the greatest. You know, this is a band that's kind of mid-level, that still a lot of people appreciate, but to me they may be a little bit undersold and underappreciated. The band, of course, is Fear Factory. They're an industrial metal band. This album is called Obsolete. It came out in 1998, July of 98. It's the sequel to the 95 album Demanufacture, which I have heard, and I really love that album. And I guess this is a concept album, so there's a story that is kind of weaved in and out of the songs and the lyrics. It basically involves humankind being taken over by machines, and then I guess there's a hero called Edge Crusher, and he is sort of set to, I guess, defeat the machines and give the planet back to humanity and essentially save humanity. So there's a lot to it. I'm not going to get into the lyrics of this album. I'm sorry for all you Fear Factory fans. I know that you guys love the concept album aspect of the album. You like the storytelling, but it's just a lot to get into over the course of an album reaction. And these videos are already long enough with me just talking about the instrumentation. So I'm just going to really focus on how it sounds. That I do appreciate it when bands get this detailed and really go into depth as far as storytelling, concept albums, and really trying to weave a narrative with their music. I think that's really cool because that's like extra credits, you know. They're going the extra mile by doing that. This also, I wanted to let you guys know that there is, along with the original 10 tracks that were a part of this album, there's also a remix of a song called Cars that I've definitely heard already and was familiar with back when I was a lot younger. And that was a single, even though it wasn't a part of the original lineup of songs. So I'm going to be listening to that as well because it's been probably 15 years since I heard that song. It's been a long time, maybe longer than that, maybe like 18 years since I heard that song. So I'm going to go ahead and listen to that as well. I'm not familiar with any of these tracks. I'm really looking forward to this thing. I hope you guys are too. I'm going to go ahead and get started here with the first track. And I believe this was a single off of the album. This one is called Shock, and we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Alright, I had to stop it, guys. This, strangely enough, this sounds a little familiar, but I don't really know, you know, I don't know when I would have heard this, the vibe of it. Maybe it's just because it reminds me of other Fear Factory songs I've heard. But I'm getting this strange feeling of deja vu, but I can't quite place it with this song. So maybe at some point in my childhood, my parents or my uncle or somebody was playing Fear Factory and playing this song, and I kind of heard it out of my periphery, but didn't really know what it was or internalize it or remember it much. But yeah, this is definitely ringing a few bells here. Obviously, it sounds almost to me like groove-ish, almost like Pantera-esque groove metal. I don't want to say that the lead singer of this band sounds like Phil Anselmo, but it's just, I guess the guitar riffage kind of reminds me of some of the stuff that Dimebag used to do. Also, I want to say that the clean vocals are really cool, actually. They're not anything mind-blowing or super unique or special, but I mean they bring a lot of character to the track, man. They make the track. They take it to another level for sure. I love whenever he comes in and sings like that. He's got a very kind of masculine voice, and he's not trying to be real melodic and kind of angelic, but he's not singing real deep either. He's like in the middle somewhere. And I think it sounds really cool. Like the drum pattern in this thing and how it's kind of, you know, matched up perfectly with the guitars. And it's like... That's a really cool groove or riff right there. I really like that. So far, man, I really like this track. I think that this definitely makes sense of why this was a single off the album. That was pretty heavy, man. At the end of the song, the last maybe, it seemed to drag just a little bit. It seemed like it was getting a little repetitive, especially towards the end of the track with him repeating the same, more or less the same vocal line over and over again. And keeping the same drum pattern and the same riff. And it just seemed to, maybe they could have cinched that up a bit. To be honest, man, this is pure, unstoppable, like, uninterrupted headbanging the entire way through, man. This is just one long headbang. And I wish I could have seen them play this song live, because I bet the crowd would be fucking crazy listening to this thing. That was really cool. Yeah, just a great opener to an album. Again, I'm a little curious to see what the lyrics were about on that song, but I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not really gonna delve into them because it would just take up too much time. So I was impressed by that song. It's not quite as good as some of the other Fear Factory I've heard, some of the other songs I've heard, but it's definitely one of the better songs by them that I've heard. So yeah, I was really happy with that. I'm gonna move on to track number 2. This one's called Edge Crusher. Alright, I gotta stop it. That is fucking crazy, guys. Damn. Those riffs fucking punch you or kick you right in the teeth. That is fucking intense, man. Those are heavy, crushing, whatever adjective you want to use, man. Those fit the bill. This is one of the most badass things that I've heard from Fear Factory for sure. Like, this goes right up there with some of the other songs I've heard. Yeah, this is badass. I can't even, like, and there's not just one crushing riff in this thing. There's 2 of them. And they're kind of, like I've said on other videos, it's not like they're super, they don't sound like they're super hard to play. It's creative, it sounds badass, but it's also relatively simple. And it's perfect for grooving and perfect for headbanging, man. I can imagine, like, somebody getting on a fucking motorcycle with a black jacket on and Man, having this on a phone or an iPod and putting the earbuds in, maybe people can't do that on motorcycles because the wind is too loud. I'm not sure. I've never ridden on one. But all I'm trying to say is I could see somebody like doing something really intense, like flying a fighter jet or driving a fucking race car like 150 miles an hour, or riding on a motorcycle super fast down some winding roads, you know, and just putting their earbuds in, and they have their iPod and they're jamming this song. You know, this is just like pure, unbridled aggression and adrenaline right here. Love this song. I'm gonna let the rest of the song play out. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I shouldn't make judgments this early, but that's probably going to be the song that I take away from this album as like, you know, the perfect song, like pure perfection, and that I can just listen to over and over and over and over and over again, like every morning, once every morning for the rest, you know, the rest of my life, and just be, it'll make you a freaking better person, man, to listen to this song. Like, and for me, an example on the other albums I've done, songs that were like that. For example, on the Slug J album, it was Slave Goo World. That was my favorite song off that album. The Woods of Ypres, my favorite song off that album was Lightning and Snow. For me, I can already tell, like, that song Edge Crusher to me is flawless. I'm just thinking, like, I can't even think of a weak spot in that whole song. The only thing that people might say is with the kind of strange computer sounds, or I don't know what they were, but they were like machine sounds going on around the 2/3 of the way through. Some people may think that that's kind of corny, and I guess if that's in an album and it's 1998, I mean, it seems a little bit dated. I don't really know if people are doing that as much anymore. Maybe they are, but I'm not a huge aficionado of industrial metal or of industrial music, period, so I wouldn't really know, but what I'm trying to say is that I could see that as being something that dates this album, and some people may not appreciate that, especially people who are listening to it for the first time today. But the riffs in that song, man, that was unbelievable. I was so happy with that track. I'm going to keep that track under my hat and just hold on to it for a future time, because, yeah, that was pretty badass. So we'll see where they go with it from here. They've got 2 badass songs right off the bat. Sounds like 2 singles right off the bat. We've got this track next. This is called Smasher/Devourer. And I guess Smasher Devourer is a character in this story that's being told. I read that he or she is something of like a secondary antagonist. So this is the song about the villain, right? We've had the song about the hero, Edge Crusher. Now we're going to get the song about one of the villains. So I'm going to go ahead and play this out and see what's going on with it. know who's like the conjoined twin to this band? Another band from around the same time period, like the mid-90s. I think like mid-90s, okay? I think that's when this other band's albums were coming out. But from like the 90s, mid-90s and onward, that was also an industrial metal band. Have you guys ever heard of the band Strapping Young Lad? Okay, Devin Townsend's old band. That stuff, especially stuff from City, their album City, that I can't remember when it came out. I think it came out in like 95. That kind of reminds me of this. Like this and that seem like they're, you know, they're real close. So I wonder if, you know, these two bands, Fear Factory and Strapping Young Lad, if they had any communication at all, how they viewed one another, if they saw each other as like rivals, or if they were on a friendly sort of basis, if they had any communication at all, and what that was like. Because yeah, if you listen to City and then you listen to this, it's very, very, very close, man. So far, this song, it's badass, it's good, but it's not something that I'll probably single out the same way I would the first two from this album. It seems a little bit feebler than their last two songs as far as establishing a punishing, skull-crushing groove and riff. Don't get me wrong, it's a good song, but it just seems to have a little bit less sauce on it. You know, and his vocals, and they are good too. His vocals really elevate the music. You can't argue with that. I mean, every time, because the music can get a little bit homogenous, I'm not going to lie. Fear Factory's approach is to pretty much have the same guitar tone, the same overall sound. There is some sort of ambient electronic and noise happening in the background, but it's very minimal. You know, to kind of break up some of this monotony, this guy sings, and his cleans are actually very refreshing when they come in. So I like the fact that they appear on this track as well. And I don't think this is a bad song at all. I think this is great. It's just, like I've said before in other videos, if I were to listen to this album in its entirety, and let's say I was driving in my car, this is not a song that I would skip. I wouldn't skip it. But if I was like looking up songs on my phone to listen to, I probably wouldn't search for the song first. It's just, it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and play the rest of this song. Last 2 minutes of that song that was beautiful, man. God, again, that was so heavy. That was so badass. That was so throttling and blood pumping. I always use those same words, but man, I really loved the way they ended that song, and I loved the way, I'll show you what part I'm talking about so you can kind of hear. But there was a part in this song where it was kind of moving along, and then whatever was happening, it sharply dipped or dropped into this brand new riff, and the singer started singing at the same time, and it reminded me so much of Devin's music. But here we go. I love that so much. I don't know why. The way the drums changed, it was a brand new drum pattern, brand new beat. This brand new riff came in and he started singing. It was like a completely different song all of a sudden. And I thought that reminded me of Strapping Young Lad. I don't know what else to tell you, but especially with the heavy pounding riffage and the guy singing over the top of it. I also have to say that some of these chords, man, they're so goddamn heavy. They're so fat and bassy and thick that it reminds me almost of the kind of stuff you'd hear in grindcore. Like, you know that sensation of when you're listening to the guitar chords or the guitar, they're playing these power chords, and each time they play the chord, it's like boom. It makes that real deep bassy boom. So when they play a riff, it's like, or a chord progression, it sounds like boom, 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 boom. It sounds like you're being fucking pounded into the ground. Yeah, I can't believe, like, when in 1998, if you had a good stereo system, man, and you put this album in, this CD, and you were to crank it up, man, God, that must have been... I bet there were metalheads all across the world doing that when this album came out, because when this came out, man, it's still pretty heavy. But in 1998, 20 years ago, man, this would have been heavy as fuck right here. So yeah, I loved that. Loved that. I think the last 2 minutes of that song may have saved the entire thing for me. Not that it needed saving or that it was a bad song before that, but that, to me, the last 2 minutes of that song took it up to another level. And I think now it's something that I would view more on the same plane as like the first two tracks. So far we've got 3 great tracks to start the album off. Like I'm damn impressed with this thing so far. That was Smasher Devourer. We're gonna move on to the 4th track on the album, Securitron, in brackets, Police State 2000. It's pretty funny you see 2000 in a lot of movies, music, different products before the year 2000, because to them the year 2000 was the future. It was cutting edge, it was cool. So you see that all over the place, and this came out in 98, so that's kind of funny. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and play the 4th track. There is a fear factor in this division. There's not really a lot for me to break down, honestly. Like, they're pretty much, after you get through a few songs, you pretty much know the game, the name of the game with them. You recognize the guitar tone, it's very unique. You know it's going to be heavy. You know the drums are going to be a little bit funky, but it's also going to have this, like, precision about it, precision about the music. You know, it's going to be like groove metal meets industrial. And his vocals, of course, are going to be good. I have to say, when they came in initially on this track, they seemed a little bit sing-songy to me and a little bit cheesy, but then I felt like the longer they went on, the more they kind of grew on me, and I grew to kind of enjoy them, and thought they ended up thinking they fit in pretty well with the song. Yeah, I think this is a great song. I love the riff in here, especially the way the song kind of built and the way it began and kind of built in intensity, and you could tell something big was coming. And then they dropped that main riff in there, and then he started singing. So very cool. I don't know how I feel about the intro to this song, like the police sirens and police noise. Like, that's all really cool, I guess, and I guess it fits with the theme of the song. But I don't know. I guess I'm sort of ambivalent towards it. Like, I understand why they put it in the music, but in my mind, the song is not. The song would be fine without it. Like, the song doesn't really need it, but I understand probably conceptually why they put that in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest of this song. I have to say that his vocals didn't really get any more spectacular for me. They didn't really get any better. I said they grew on me in the sense that, like, I started out kind of thinking they were a little bit lame, and then I kind of got used to them a little bit. And the second time his vocals came in, it seemed like, you know, my opinion of them didn't really change. So they didn't really do anything to lose me, but they didn't really do anything to win me over either on this particular track. But also I want to say that whenever they have some of these heavier sections and they're playing these super intense, heavy chord progressions, the distortion on the guitars is such that it almost sounds like the chords are blending into one another in a way that's really cool. It creates this real creamy, like, blanket level distortion that it makes it sound like the entire song is being just washed over by the distortion from those guitars, and it sounds so heavy and so cool and so interesting. I love it when they do that. With Fear Factory, for me, Fear Factory is like Monster Energy, you know, and based on Demanufacture, which I did like, you know, it's almost like you know what you're gonna get out of Fear Factory, but what you get is very, very good. You know, I don't really have any complaints there. So far, Securitron I thought was excellent. Smasher, Devourer, Edge Crusher, Shock. Like, there hasn't been a bad song yet, man. A real dud. All of these songs I feel like are solid, good songs. And the one that sticks out the most, of course, is Edge Crusher, but haven't been disappointed with anything on this album so far. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the fifth track. This is called Descent. So, you Fear Factory fans out there, tell me, is this like the ballad on the album? What is this? Because that guitar melody that came in at the beginning of the track and is kind of carrying the track, it keeps reappearing over and over. That makes me think that this is some sort of like 90s alternative rock song almost. It has that kind of sound and feel to it. But then interspersed in between, that melody coming in, there's this really badass like groove and riff that this guy keeps playing. It's like bam 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 bam. That's a rough approximation of it, but anyway, I don't know what to make of this song, man. This song's got me all confused. I don't know what's going on, but I think it's a decent song. I think this song would probably be really popular. I don't know if this is a single or not off of this album, but I could imagine a lot of people, especially people that are kind of on the fence when it comes to extreme metal, I could see them really vibing out to this track. So I'm a little bit on the fence about it. I don't quite know how I feel about it yet. I'll have to kind of let it play out and see if my opinion solidifies here. It kind of reminds me of, actually, I said alternative rock. I should have said alternative metal. That reminds me of like 90s alternative, bands like Helmet, Handsome, Failure, maybe even Hum, even though I know Hum is classified as space rock. They could get a little heavy. And yeah, it sort of reminds me of that kind of shit. Which actually, I love that stuff. I would go to bat for that stuff. I love that. It's just a little weird to hear it on a Fear Factory album. I'm not trying to put Fear Factory in a box. I'm just saying, I don't know if that really makes sense in the context of who they are and what they've had on this album so far. It just seems a little bit too light for them. Maybe maybe this is a song that they wrote and they thought, well, this has got kind of a catchy little melody in it, and we can kind of alternate the sections that sound like that with heavier grooves and kind of create an interesting dynamic song. For me, I kind of like the stuff that's more along the lines of Shock and Edge Crusher, especially when it comes to this band. So I don't know, I'm kind of so-so on that one. I wasn't really a huge fan of that song, even though I know and I can tell you guys out there, I'm willing to bet a lot of money that a lot of people like that song. I can just tell by the way it sounds. So, guys, I'm sorry if I upset you by saying that I wasn't blown away by that song. I'm sorry about that, but I just didn't, to me, it didn't have the same level of intensity and ferocity and aggression that I've come to really enjoy about Fear Factory's music. So that's all I have to say about that, really. I'm going to move on to the 6th track, High Tech Hate. I actually think that they don't need him to sing on every song. I know I said earlier in the reaction that his vocals gave a nice relief from the heaviness of the music, because as the listener, you're kind of being pounded by the drums and the guitar riffs and just the insane grooves and the heaviness and the riffage. And his vocals provide kind of an interesting break from that. But actually in this song, man, I've grown so accustomed to that sound, to their sound, I don't even really, mind. I wouldn't mind having an entire track of just nothing but brutality from these guys. I don't necessarily need the dude singing in the middle on every song. It's cool to have it on some of the songs, maybe like 2/3 of them or whatever, but it just seems like they're resorting to that formula a lot, and it's only track 6, and I'm wondering if the rest of these tracks, with the exception of Cars, because I know that's very different, but these remaining 4 after this track, I'm wondering if they're going to use the same formula. It's great, it's good. I'm not saying that it's not good music. I really enjoy this song, actually. High Tech Hate, this is exactly what I wanted. The criticisms, all the criticisms I had of the 5th track, Descent, those criticisms, they were all answered with this track. Like, this track answers the bell on everything. It's brutal. The grooves are just vicious. It's intense. It's in your face. The drums, the sound of the drums is, how do I describe it? It's very, just salient, almost chopping. It sounds like something's being chopped. Like someone's slamming a knife down on a cutting board almost. I really like it. It's a really abrasive sound. Hearing those, the drumsticks whenever they hit the snare like that, it's just a very pow. Also, I want to say that really, man, outside of the 5th track, they haven't had a bad song on this whole album, man. This is just really good. Fear Factory should be very proud of themselves that they put out this album, man, because these are all good songs. And even the 5th song, even though I didn't like it, I can see how that would be a very likable song and very popular song. So, yeah, so far, man, I'm just, wow, this is a badass album. But, yeah, as far as this song, I like it. But I wish maybe that they wouldn't always resort to the same trick every time. It's novel and it's new and it's cool a few times, but it seems like they're going back to the well a lot here. And I just don't want the music to become formulaic, is what I'm saying. I'm gonna let the rest of this song finish out. Yeah, this song, man, this is another great example of just Fear Factory being super heavy and having all of these insane head-knocking, head-banging grooves, man. I don't know what else you could want, especially if you were going to a live show. Man, seeing these guys live back in the day when this album came out would have been fucking incredible, man. Because this is just awesome music. It's not super complicated or intellectual. I've reacted to some things on this channel that were very complex and that seemed to be very nuanced and had a lot of moving parts, and this is very straightforward Forgive me if my commentary is not as on point as maybe it could be, or maybe it usually is. I feel like I'm sort of running out of things to say about this band because I've kind of caught on to what the music is, I feel like, and it's muscular. Like, this is music for gym rats, if there ever was music for gym rats. Like, to me, this and Machine Head, they provide a similar service to the metal community. It's just music to headbang to, you know? It's like, what else do you want to... But I know I'm not really giving Fear Factory their just due on this album because I'm not digging into the lyrics. So I'm not really getting into the more conceptual, heady aspect of the music. I understand that, and I'm sorry about that. But yeah, to me, this just seems like very straightforward. You know, we're going to be in your face, aggressive and groovy, and you're going to headbang. And it's going to be like that the whole way through. And props to them for actually accomplishing that. With the exception of the 5th track, I feel like they've lived up to that billing so far. So we're going to move on to track 7. This is called Freedom or Fire. That drum pattern that guy was playing through the entire first, little over halfway through of this song, like the first 60% of the song, was just crazy, man. That was so fucking cool. I was like jiving and grooving to that, man. The hip hop guys, I'm pretty sure would have a lot of fun with that. If any of them ever heard this song, they'd probably rip it and try to sample it, right? Yeah, that was so cool. I wasn't even so much paid attention to the guitars on that. I was literally listening to the drums and just like grooving with the drums, man, because they were so cool, so captivating. And I thought actually his vocals work on this track. You know, it doesn't sound meat and potatoes. It doesn't sound like, oh, here we go again. They actually, I don't know what it is about them. Maybe it's just the way they're being presented, like the instrumentation surrounding them, or the notes that he's singing, but there's some weird combination of those factors, different factors going on that makes his vocal line in this song actually really beautiful, but also badass, I guess. So I really actually dig the vocals on this track, which is funny because in the last track I was like, man, I hope they don't do that again. And here they are doing it again, but I actually like it, so that's kind of funny how that works out. But again, and just the way they transitioned into this latest riff right here, it's just sick, man. The riff writing on this album is so sick. But I just want to say, like, Fear Factory, you guys did an awesome job on this album. I'm sure you already know that. This is the perfect album. Forget making a playlist, man. But when you go to the gym, to lift weights, put this album on, man. Put this on, because this was made for that activity. And I generally don't like it when people, they view music through a certain lens as having certain functions, and they only like music that facilitates certain activities. And I generally like it better when people can stand back and objectively appreciate the different aesthetic qualities of music in any setting, not necessarily, using music as a way to facilitate certain activities. So I more or less, I come from the perspective of somebody who's like, no, we're not just going to listen to music that we take with us to the gym. We're not just going to listen to music that we can drive around to. We're not just going to use music as a way to relax. We're going to actually sit down. We're going to sit down at a desk and we're going to listen to full albums. And we're going to try to figure out what makes those albums good or not. That's the perspective I come from. With that said, I have to say, this particular album is perfect for unleashing aggression, lifting weights, anything having to do with just getting that out. This is so perfect for that. So I'm sure many a bodybuilder has used this album as motivation when they're in the gym, especially back when this album came out. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the song. The drummer went off in that song. That was an excellent song from the point of view and the perspective of the drumming. That was really cool. That's maybe the first metal song ever that I've totally focused on the drumming in exclusion to anything else and just vibed out to the drumming and fucking grooved along to what the drummer was doing with no... this is a guitar player, okay? I grew up playing guitar. I usually focus on the guitars first, and the guitars usually capture my attention. Not in that song, man. In that song, that the drums are what really held my attention through the entire way through. Another song maybe that kind of, Tool, Ticks and Leeches, a song where maybe my attention is focused primarily on what the drummer is doing in exclusion to everything else, but I couldn't help it in that song, man. I couldn't help it in Freedom or Fire. That song, the drummer was just going fucking crazy. He was going nuts. He had that really slick drum beat that he was playing, and then when we got towards the end of the track and it started to get more intense, and it was heading towards the climax, he started to throw little ad-libs in there, and then return back to the original beat, and then throw in another ad-lib, and then go back, and he was going bananas, man. That was really neat. I really liked both sections in this song with the clean singing. I thought, the melody that he chose, the vocal line, I thought it was really cool, really a little bit melancholic, but very nice. Yeah, that was another awesome song, man. There hasn't been a bad song on this whole thing, and we're about to hit track 8. So that just kind of tells you the level that this album is operating at musically. No duds. We're not messing around with any duds. Okay, no so-so tracks. Like I said, the one track, Descent, that I thought was so-so, I can recognize that it's probably going to be a popular song. So with that said, I don't think that there's a single dud on this album so far, and we're about to hit track number 8. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Obsolete. This is the title track, 3 minutes and 51 seconds. I have to admit though, overall, so far this track isn't really impressing me that much. I don't know what it is, man, but it just seems like it's flowing right by and not really making a mark anywhere. I don't know what it is. I mean, the riffs are all right. There's nothing wrong with the drum beat, or it's heavy. I just want to shrug my shoulders, kind of. It's just not grabbing me so far. None of the riffs they're playing are really grabbing me. There's not been any real intense changes in the music or transitions to kind of grab my attention. I know I complained earlier about the vocals, and now this may be the first song in a while that's had no clean vocals in it, and I'm saying I don't like it. But even if this had clean vocals in it, I don't think it would change my opinion of the track. This just seems a little bit standard fare for them. I don't think they poured as much into this track and the songwriting of this track as they did for tracks like Edge Crusher, Shock, Descent, Securitron, Freedom or Fire. You know, if this feels like it was mailed in a little bit. So, but we're going to go ahead and finish the rest of it out. When a band names a track after the album, and that track becomes what's called the title track, usually there's something remarkable about that track. And I mean remarkable musically. This felt completely mailed in, man. I don't know what happened here, but like why they would pick that track to make the title track, that doesn't make any sense. That song is literally the least interesting song on this whole thing. I think this track is named after the album, and I think it's the title track because the lyrics, this is a conceptual story album. The lyrics to this track are probably, you know, crucial for understanding the entire story. They probably named this track Obsolete because of where the lyrical content of this song fits in with the rest of the narrative. So we're getting towards the end of the album, we're getting towards the end of the story. There's probably some really important lyrical stuff hidden in here. But like I said, with the exception of Woods of Ypres, I don't really get really into the lyrics, man. It's just not something that I do. You know, if you guys want to see a bunch of lyrical breakdowns, check out Vin and Sori's channel. Okay, that's VIN and SORI. If you want a good lyrical breakdown, go check them out, because that's not what I do here generally. I mean, I do album reactions. I don't want to read a freaking short story every time I have to react to an album. I don't know, that song just kind of left me cold. I'm gonna shut up because I don't want to piss anybody off, but yeah, I didn't really like that track. So that, for me, that's the first dud. That's the first true dud on the whole album, and it happens to be the title track, so go figure. But we're gonna move on to track 9. This is Resurrection. Where did this come from? Where the fuck was this on the last track? Oh my god, it's like night and day, man. Real quick, man, the way his vocals started the track off, real epic, hitting these high notes, and then I'm gonna screw up the camera, but man, that's so fucking hard. That's badass, dude. So yeah, this is the Fear Factory that I want to hear right here. I have to say, man, like, after dropping the first dud on the whole album, they come through with one of the best songs on the album, man. This song is so catchy, brutal. It's everything that I love about Fear Factory, all condensed into one song. The guy's vocals are superb in this song. I love the vocal melody in this song. Earlier, when he was going, anyway, I feel foolish doing that in front of you guys, but I'm just trying to illustrate the different sections of the music that I responded to. So during that part of the song, I found that I realized while he was like doing that I was like anticipating perfectly when the drum hits were going to come in. And I was like, this is fucking weird. Do I know this song? And then the chorus came in. And then I realized, I was like, dude, I think I've heard this before. And I think I have heard this before. I didn't remember this song. Like, I didn't know what it was called. And I don't really know. It sounds really familiar is what I'm trying to say. But it's not a song that I know like that. It's sort of the same feeling of deja vu, like with Shock. I just think that when I was really little, you know, because I was 8 years old when this album came out. I think that when I was really little, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, people in my family that were much older, like my dad or my uncle, must have played this album and maybe played it a lot. I don't know. And me being just a kid, you know, in like third grade, probably heard some of this, and, you know, internalized it a little bit, but wasn't really mature enough to really figure out what it was yet. And now I'm listening to it again and I'm almost 30 years old and some of these songs are like clicking and I'm like, oh my God, I've heard that before. So this is a pretty intense listening experience for me. Long story short, to me, this and Edge Crusher are the two best songs on the album. Shock might come in at number 3. Songs like Freedom or Fire, High Tech Hate, and Securitron, Smasher, and Devourer, they're all jockeying for position under that. This song is killer, man. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of it. There's 3 minutes left in the track. You know that heavy part's coming back. Alright, I have a pretty decent ear for music, but I'm not a savant or anything. And near the back end of that track, like towards the very end, were those strings or was that a synthesizer? Because it sounded like earlier in the song when the guy was singing that there was a synth track in the background. Maybe you guys can help me out with that, you in the comment section. That was, obviously that's an excellent song. The vocal line was incredible, super catchy. I played around like I was making fun of it, but the reason I was doing that is because it's literally like, this is, heavy metal you can dance to, pretty much. When that chorus is playing, I don't know how much catchier you can get. This is just a badass song. I don't know what to say. The albums I react to on this channel are so quality that you guys will see me get a little bit redundant sometimes. I'll say the same things over and over. I'll be like, man, I don't know what to say. That was crazy. Or I'll say things like, I don't see how someone could not like this. Or I'll say, that was just all of the things that this band does well, condensed into one song. I say things like that, and they're going to become cliches eventually because I can't help it. I have a limited vocabulary. But yeah, again, this is just a song that all of those things I just said, this song checks all those boxes. And to me, it might even be better than Edge Crusher. This song and Edge Crusher are the two best songs on the whole album, for me. Interesting to listen to a song that I first heard when I was like 8 years old, probably, and didn't really remember or know that I had heard. We're going to move on to track number 10. This is called Timelessness. Yeah, this is okay, and I remember earlier in the album reaction, I called Descent the fifth track. I asked you guys if that was the ballad on the album. Forget about that. I'm sorry I said that. Regret that. This is the ballad on the album. I don't really know what's happening here. He sounds like he's wailing about something. Something he's probably, it sounds like he's got some kind of deep-seated sadness in his heart that he's just like, it's just, exploding out of him and he's crying out to the universe is what it sounds like. I don't have the lyrics, but also I want to say his voice, man, and it sounds like it's getting a little bit of help, right? A little bit of digital help, like they're help keeping him on key a little bit. He sounds at different points, he sounds like he's real close to slipping off pitch. Like he's not quite hitting the notes as cleanly as he could be. I think this guy's got some talent as a vocalist, but I definitely think he's a little bit out of his league here. I think with a track like this, where it's just a vocal spotlight, I think this was a little bit asking a little bit too much of the vocalist. When you take away all the rest of the instrumentation and you just have him singing solitary by himself, you can kind of focus in more on the nuances of what he's doing, and sometimes it can point out some of the smaller flaws that you don't normally pick up on when he's got this heavy distortion behind him. I don't know. I think this guy, he may just need some additional help, to stay on pitch and to not slip, because I think he's got talent, but I also can tell he's not a trained singer. We're gonna move on. We're gonna finish out the rest of this track. Okay, that was a big head scratcher. I don't know why they ended the. I mean, because if you have to think about it, that track was the last track on the original 10, the grouping of 10 that was the original album. Okay, I don't know why they would end an album like this that was so fierce and brutal and mosh friendly and groovy. I don't know why they would end it with a track like that. I know sometimes artists like to end their albums with tracks that seem really beautiful, and even extreme metal albums will often end with instrumentation, like a lot of classical instrumentation, strings, pianos, and sometimes a very heavy album can all of a sudden get real soft and melodic towards the very end, because the artist wants to give a feeling of finality to the album. This just seemed very amateurish, like the way they did this. It didn't fit with any of the other songs. I mean, there was no musical connection between this track and the other 9 that were in this list. I criticized the 5th track, Descent, for being at least one half 90s alternative metal. And if I'm gonna do that, I have to criticize this track for not being for not being a Fear Factory song. This doesn't carry their signature sound. This isn't the kind of song that they would normally write. Like, I don't know why they created this song. It's just a big head scratcher. And his voice, like I said, it seemed like he was really struggling to hit the notes. I can't explain that track. That was really weird. Didn't really enjoy that one. The 8th track, Obsolete, didn't really enjoy that track. So the title track and the final track on this album were were for me the two worst songs on the whole album. Usually if you're listening to a good album, usually the title track and the last track, the closer, usually those are two of the strongest tracks on the whole album. But for me, with this album, it was completely reversed. Everything else on this album is good. The title track is not good, and the closer is not good. Yeah, overall, this was a badass album. There's just a few head-scratching moments where you're just wondering what these guys were thinking. I'm not going to dwell on that too much. Needless to say, I'm going to move on to the last song. And this was a remix of a song called Cars. I guess was Gary Newman. Is that correct? You guys will have to fill me in the comments section who the original artist was. But I'm pretty sure I've heard this before. I'm going to check this out. This will be another song from my childhood whenever I was really, really young in grade school. I mean, I think there's a music video for this, isn't there? I think I remember seeing the music video on TV. After we're done with that, then I'll go through the list and I'll let you guys know my final thoughts and what my favorite songs on the album were. So this is track 11, Cars, the remix.
And it's the only way in cars. Here in my car, I can only receive. I can listen to you and it keeps me stable for days in cars. Here in my car, where the English press down, will you visit me please if I open my door in cars?
Excellent, excellent song. That deserves to be on the radio. That's super radio friendly. It's radio ready. I could see that being a minor hit for Fear Factory at the time. I say minor hit because Fear Factory probably never got radio play like a lot of other bands did. But that particular song, man, I could see that easily being on the radio. I don't know if I ever heard it on the radio. Like I said, I was really young at the time. I was like 8 years old when this album came out. I remember that song, and I remember I liked that song. And I think I remember there being a video, and I remember talking to my mom about it, and we were talking back and forth, and I was like, yeah, I think my dad and Uncle Vance are going to go see Fear Factory, and I really wanted to go with them. And she said, who's Fear Factory? And I was like, you know, they have that song called Cars. That's all about cars. Like, I remember us having that conversation when I was really young. I don't know how old I was, but to be honest, this album actually does have a little bit of sentimental value for me, even though I didn't realize that going in. You know, I basically, what I did, guys, is I made a list of about 50 albums. And they're all albums that I haven't heard before, and this is one of them. Listening to it, just different spots in the track listing in different songs hit me, and I had that deja vu and realized, like, holy crap, my family members were probably playing this album when I was really little, and I caught some of that stuff, and it stayed in here for, you know, all this time, and it's been unearthed and reawakened listening to this album. It's really strange. I know you guys want to see a reaction. That's what I intended to give you, and that's what I want to give you guys. I just didn't realize, I didn't even think about the fact that, you know, I may have heard, albeit peripherally, that I may have heard some of these songs when I was really little. I didn't even think about that. So I apologize for that. The only songs, like I said, that were like that, that gave me that deja vu, was Shock and Resurrection. Cars I already knew, but I let you guys know that up front. And that's a remix, and it wasn't included with the original 10 tracks, so I don't really think that's a big deal. But everything else sounded brand new to me, fresh. I'd never heard it before. I loved just about everything on this album. Edge Crusher, Resurrection, Cars remix, and Shock, to me, are the top 4 songs, with Edge Crusher and Resurrection at the top. And then under that, Smasher, Devourer is like the next. Then just under that, Securitron and Freedom of Fire and High Tech Hate. And then just under that, Descent. And then under that, Obsolete. And then under Obsolete, Timeless. Like, I think if they had replaced Timelessness with the Cars remix and just released the album like that, this would have been a near flawless album. This album was so good. I bet the people that were adult metalheads back in '98, you know, people like my uncle and my dad, I bet when this came out, I bet they had so much fun with this album, man, because this is primo right here. This is a great album. It's super heavy. It's conducive to headbanging, which is always important. It's not technical, but it doesn't need to be. And there's not a bunch of exotic instrumentation on most of these tracks. There's a little bit on Resurrection, but most of these tracks, not a lot of exotic instrumentation. A little bit of, you know, strange noise and electronic elements here and there, but nothing overpowering. To me, this is just a badass album. It's not an album that's going to change your life necessarily, unless you've never heard industrial metal before, or you've never heard Fear Factory before, or maybe you're just starting to get into heavy music. Maybe then it'll change your life. But this is definitely an album I respect. Again, it's an album that I have a lot of that has sentimental value for me, and I'm glad that I was able to revisit this thing, and that it was able to kind of bring back some pretty cool memories. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this album reaction. Let me know if you like this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe below. Let me know what you guys want to see me react to in the future. Again, I'm still a very small channel, and if you post a request, then there's a good chance I'm going to get to it, because I don't have very many requests. Okay, I have a couple of people making requests. That's it. So if you guys have an album that you know is a little bit underrated, a little bit underappreciated, or maybe it's the seminal album from a band that's underrated and underappreciated, go ahead and shoot that over to me, man. I want to be exposed to new music. A lot of YouTube channels, you know, they try to be all selfless and altruistic, and they're like, this isn't about me, this is about you guys. And like, I understand why they say that, but for me, you want the honest truth, this channel is for the artists, number one, and it's for me. Like, I want to be exposed to new music, and this is the best way to do that, is to coordinate with like-minded music listeners on YouTube that are also metalheads, and they can put you on to albums that you may have never heard of. I hate to say that, but I'm doing all this work for the viewers, but I've also got my own selfish motives too. Thank you for watching this video. You have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and I will see you guys next time.